Ladies and gentlemen, hello. My name is Jared Kubicka-Miller. For those of you who don't know me, I am a professor of communications at Santiago Canyon College, and I have been offering public speaking online for about a year now. I feel like I might have a few things to offer the discussion about um, uh, how to adapt to the online environment so many of us have been forced to onto because of the coronavirus pandemic. And so I have run into a number of issues that have come up time and time again in my online public speaking class, and I've been meaning to put together professional quality videos instructing individuals, students, and as well as other instructors on how to adapt to these issues. But time is running short. I'm getting overwhelmed with a bunch of work, and I thought I would do it this way. In this environment, the great part is that you can comment on the things that I'm bringing up. Any of the issues that I bring up in this 3 series of episodes are open for discussion, and I would love to have any comments from anybody about what you have encountered, and maybe even have a discussion if we have a difference of opinion on how to set these things up. For this episode, I want to focus on the body. So rather than focusing on technology and equipment and how do you connect these things, I want to focus on the things that we are actually really familiar with and how adapting to an online environment might be a little bit difficult, but still is something that that we can do. Okay. So when I'm talking about body, we're going to be talking about the presence on camera, facial expressions, eye contact, gestures, things like that. The first thing that I have learned through my experience with online teaching is that there is a little bit of confusion about how much of the body to show on camera. Throughout these 3 videos, you're going to see that I have come to the conclusion that having approximately from the waist up is one of the best ways to present the body while online. I have a few reasons for this that are going to come up over and over again. But when it comes specifically to the body, facial expressions are just irreplaceable. And so if you zoom out and have a full body shot, the facial expressions tend to get lost. There are other things that get lost, but as far as this episode is concerned, facial expressions are one of the best tools that a speaker has at their disposal. And if you don't have a close enough shot for that, then they get lost. And so I really, really recommend that you have maybe from the solar plexus up or from the waist up. The second thing that you get when you have a shot from the waist up is that the gestures that you have now are kind of akin to what I learned when I was learning public speaking, that you keep your gestures above the waist. And now there's actually incentive. If you have gestures down below the waist, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. And so now people actually have incentive to bring it up and have really controlled gestures on camera. So facial expressions and gestures are 2 really good reasons why you want to have this full body shot. Well, not a full body shot, but it's from the waist up. But another thing is that it gives you enough space in the screen for you to actually use, right? One of the most common questions I get from instructors, and not just from students, from instructors themselves, is that they wonder, what do we do with the transition walk that we typically teach our students? Especially since students are really used to giving just profile or bust shots when they are on camera. They're used to FaceTiming with each other. We have to dispel the idea that all we're doing is FaceTiming. We need to create a new artistic form called presentational speaking. And for presentational speaking, we should show a larger portion of the body in order to increase the communication tools that students have. And so now there is the ability to have somewhat of a transition walk when you give yourself a little bit of extra space. As you can see, if I wanted to do a transition walk, it's a lot smaller, okay? But at the same time, you still can have a slightly, a little bit of a step, and you can transition to where you want to be. Now, I have a screen in front of me. I could see where I am and I could kind of frame myself. If the monitor that you have for your when you're giving a speech or your students are giving a speech is too small to see it, or if it's turned away from them, you're going to want to have maybe some markers on the ground that you have outlined so you could hit your marks at the right time. The thing about online presentational speaking is that it doesn't necessarily require more setup, but it does require a different setup than we are used to. And so practicing for online presentational speaking really means that you have to do your setup and see how you look on camera and then map out what you're doing. But from then on, a lot of the same lessons that we give our students still apply. How you have your vocal tone, how you use your body when it comes to gestures, where you are looking, and things like that. That leads me to the next thing I want to talk about, which is eye contact. Some students, especially students who have experience, are confused about what to do with eye contact. But the long and short of it is you need to look right into the camera. And this is a new skill for many people. It's difficult to actually maintain your focus on a single point. And it's really common for people to look at themselves as they're speaking, as I'm doing right now, rather than into the camera. But if you want to reproduce the effect of eye contact, you really need to look into the camera. And I think you need to be very explicit with your students about the importance of maintaining contact with the camera. Now, sometimes there may be times where you don't need to look directly into the camera in order to kind of maximize effect on what you're talking about, try to create a natural tone, or maybe when you're transitioning, you look at the camera afterwards. But eye contact in this scenario is actually looking into the unblinking eye of the camera. Let's also talk about clothing choices. All right. So the way that you present yourself on camera, I have come into the recurring situation in which students feel that because you're on camera, things are less formal. They're used to FaceTiming and they think that laying down in their bed, even when they're giving a speech, is somehow acceptable. And there needs to be really clear outlines that that is not what we are going for. More and more students are going to be using this medium, even if they don't want to. They're going to be using video for presentational speaking. They're going to be giving presentations for their job, or they're going to try to be getting jobs through interviews online. Especially considering the situation that we all find ourselves in right now, it has been thrust upon us that the significance of online presentational speaking really needs to have some rapid development. And so we need to have a discussion about what standards we as a community of communication professors expect to have from our students in this situation. Again, feel free to comment on as we're going right now in order to move the conversation along if you're interested in doing so. All right. All right. So when you're talking, so the clothing choices that students use, anytime that if whatever lesson you have about clothing choices really needs to be stressed when it comes to like speaking in front of a camera. I'm not exactly sure where students got this idea that you could be less formal, but I can't tell you the number of speeches that I have had where students are giving it in a hoodie, all right, or they have hats on or things like that. Another thing about clothing choices is that these clothing choices are actually going to affect the image a lot more than just when in a class. If somebody chooses to wear a hat giving a presentation in class, while that might be an oversight, it doesn't necessarily conceal any part of their face. Now, if they're on camera and they have overhead lighting, that casts a pretty big shadow on their face, and that shadow now becomes an inhibition to seeing people's eyes and their eye contact. You don't necessarily know where they are looking. So These issues that we've gone over, we talked about eye contact, we talk about body. Some people are wondering whether or not somebody should be sitting down or standing up. I prefer that people stand while they are speaking. It does something to the posture. It's a lot easier for people to hunch over when they are sitting, but I don't think that's necessarily a critical part or a decision that needs to be made. As long as you're sitting, if you're sitting down and it still looks fairly good, then that's absolutely fine. But on the other hand, standing up allows you the movement that I was talking about in the first place. I don't know how people are going to non-verbally communicate a transition when they are sitting down, but when they're standing up, now they have that option. Ultimately, the decisions that you make about how you control your body on camera gives you tools. If you choose to sit down while you're speaking, you have taken away a tool. If you choose to be only a bust shot, you have taken away a tool, gestures. If there are a number of ways in which you can maximize your level of professionalism on camera and your credibility as a speaker, and those things aren't necessarily always intuitive. Let me take a look at some of the comments that I'm getting. So a question that, again, it's like, would you want to widen the lenses so that you get at least waist up? So just so everybody knows, I am simply on my laptop camera right now. I'm using the built-in camera that I have on my laptop. I'm doing that actually for a really specific reason, which is that students might only have this, okay? I do have another episode in the very near future in which I talk about your image, and I talk about all the different equipment that you could use to make that happen. But I wanted to use some of the most basic equipment that people have, and so I wouldn't necessarily recommend like a wide lens, but see how the tips of my fingers, when I put them out, reach to about the edge of the camera. I think that's optimal. It could be a little bit lower, but I didn't want my head to be too high in the shot. I wanted my face to be kind of in the center. Specifically, the nose is right in the center of the entire screen. So where you place your body should be in relation to where it is in the frame. And you need to set up your camera so it is stable, so you can have all these tools at your disposal, so you can move when you want to. Not just in the shot, but also with your hands and facial expressions and things like that. What else do we got? Excellent. Okay. So this was a short video, and I am open to answering any questions that you might have regarding these things. You can please contact me if you need if you need anything. I'm Jared Kubicka-Miller. You can send me something, a specific individual message, or if you post in the video comments itself, even after I'm done, I'll make sure that I respond to them so we can continue this conversation on, okay? So this is our first episode. It is about the body, how to control yourself in front of a screen or a camera, and for your students, and some of the things that people talk about. Join me in a little bit where I'll talk about how to control your image, which is more about how camera placement and the setup for that, as well as how to control your sound. I think all these three elements are the most reoccurring issues that I have encountered in an online public speaking class, and it really has been my pleasure to share them with you. Please don't hesitate to comment. Don't hesitate to reach out and ask me any questions. I'm more than willing to share them, okay? Thank you, everyone. I hope to see a bunch of you in the very near future. Catch my other episodes on controlling your image and controlling your sound online. Thank you all very much.